conversations today. Thanks everyone for joining yesterday, where we talked about my GMAT score, GMAT Online, and everything else. Today we're going to do something different. We're going to look at GMAT club profiles and some of the profiles that were submitted. Before we do that, let's just jump in with some introductions. Hopefully, you all know us by now, but I'm still going to go ahead and introduce myself for anybody who is watching this for the first time. My name is Souvik. I'm a second year student at the University of Michigan Ross School of Business. I am doing a few things in the uh, spring and summer before I joined Amazon for full time as a product manager. Hopefully, that's still on board. I'm here with Sam, who is my past, present, and future roommate. Sam, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hey all, Sam. Just graduated University of Michigan, go blue, and hopefully headed to Microsoft full time.
Awesome. So let's jump in. We have a lot of people watching this. So thank you guys again for joining. We will look at two specific profiles. But if you have a brief profile, post it in the comments. We will definitely look at them. Um, so we take the profiles. I'm getting a question about how to submit your profile in advance. Right now, what we are doing is we're taking the profiles from GMAT Club, from the website and the forums. So I have a forum there. It's called Ask Shovik. Post your profile there, and I'll pick them up for videos like these. But we generally have some spillover. We generally have about 10, 15 minutes at the end. So if you want to put your profile very briefly on the live chat, both Sam and I will take a look at them, and we can go from there. Awesome. So let's look at the first one. Sam, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So the first one, Indian male, background in investment banking and private equity. Sam, you can see my screen, yeah?
Yep.
Okay, so he's 30 years old. His GMAT score is 700. He's also a qualified chartered accountant, which, by the way, it's just an equivalent of CPA, but it also mixes a bit of CFA there as well. Um, Bachelor's degree from Bombay, amazing. Passed with distinction in all 3 years, all of that stuff, great. So for work experience, this guy has over 7 years of work experience. The first job was in a mid-market investment bank, and then the second job was in a PE fund. And it seems like like he worked in small teams, but had a pretty substantial work experience with lots of projects with a lot of money, both in the investment banking and the private equity experience. In terms of extracurricular, there's a lot of traveling, a lot of adventure sports. That's great. Poker and football. Awesome. Post MBA goal: continue working in private equity. Want to actively work in funds that are focused on creating social as well as environmental impact. In the long term, want to start his own PE fund based on the same principles. Target schools: INSEAD, London Business Schools, Columbia, and Kellogg's. So that's sort of what the profile is. Let's jump into it. Sam, overall thoughts, if you have them, and then we'll share.
Yeah, it looks like great work experience, but problem is from a very overrepresented demographic, and so the
Yeah.
GMAT score is low for that demographic. Um, and so I know more about the American school, so I think Columbia and Kellogg are long shots at this point.
Yeah.
Those are my overall thoughts, and then we can go into each level if you want to.
Yeah, no, I agree. I honestly, I think the bigger issue here is that look, you have very impressive work experience, and it clearly
Yeah.
shows you have done stuff, and you are probably definitely above the median of the work experience that we see in business schools. Well, I mean, I hate to lay it to you, the GMAT's gonna hurt you, man. So, uh, s- if you had a few points above where you are currently on the GMAT, I'd be comfortable with these schools. not only I'd be comfortable, I'd actually push you to apply to a few even better schools. So a 700 GMAT, in my honest, candid opinion, would maybe not be read. So what happens is just my hypothesis. I think if you're an Indian male engineer or an Indian male applicant, and if you have a GMAT that is well below the average, not just the average of Indian candidate, but also average in the pool, I have a feeling your profile may not even be read. So that's my issue with you. I think you should retake the GMAT. You can totally do
Yeah.
it because I think it's totally possible to retake and get better. I think the GMAT online is a great opportunity to sort of test the waters. It's a free test. I mean, by free, you still have to pay, but you don't. It doesn't really count in your attempts. So I would retake the GMAT with the 740. I'd be a lot more comfortable in all the schools that you have listed. With a 700, I'm not so sure. I mean, can it still happen? Yes, it can, but it's unlikely. The other thing also, and I was talking to Maria about this. By the way, Maria is a really cool admission consultant. I was talking to Maria about this, and the thing that we sort of ran into is that if you have a lower GMAT score, but you have an extremely impressive work experience, getting into the top schools, like by top, I mean the top, is actually not as challenging as it is to get into the middle of the barrel, you know? So, like, if you have a 700, 710, 720 GMAT, even though it's lower than the average, Harvard and Stanford may actually still look at you because they have so many people with like the 780s and the 790s that one or two 700s, it doesn't create a big drop in their average scores. But a school like a Kellogg or a Columbia, these are like within the top five, top 10 category. So they are very cautious, and to maintain their geographical diversity, they'll still have to admit a lot of other people with lower GMATs. So for Indians, they generally, like if you take Ross, for example, the lowest GMAT among all the Indians is at 730. And that's just like two guys. Everybody else is like 740 and above. I would go on to say like 80% of the Indian people are 750 and above. So it's going to be tough, man. Sam,
Where
what
would
else do you?
you we know a lot about kind of schools that are like really good backup schools for tech and consulting for PE and finance. What would you say would be really good backup schools for this profile?
I mean, I would go on to say not a backup, but a main scoop is Stern. Like, I don't know why Stern is not on your list, but it should be. Most PE shops are in the East Coast. So unless you're looking for like very specific tech PE, which there are a few on the West Coast, but if you want to recruit in both private equity or in a sort of financing, investment banking, hedge fund route, it's still all in the East Coast. So I agree with your school choices, but you have to include a school like Stern, a school like maybe Johnson.
Yeah.
Also, I wouldn't be shy with Booth as well. If you can increase your GMAT score by like a few tenths of points, I think Booth would be totally cool for your goal. They may not admit you because of the stats thing, but that's the thing. Also, we did a session with one GMAT club member who's a current student at Booth. Her username is KM wants to go to school. Find her on the Booth thread and ask her, because from what I understand, getting into PE from an international student perspective is tough. A lot of them don't sponsor. A lot of them you can go in the summer and they don't like give you a return offer. So those things are challenging. So
Yeah.
investment banking might be a better route. A
Or,
lot of people. Sorry, Sam. Go ahead.
yeah, or consulting on the M&A side, or even just
Mhm.
the finance side would be a nice route. Yeah, PE is just tough to get into. I think even non-international student wise, I think it's pretty tough unless you maybe are at Wharton or Harvard.
Yeah, exactly. And also, like, I would go on to say that a lot of people actually make the transition from investment banking or consulting to private equity. Like a lot of these consulting firms, they have specific private equity practices.
Yep.
So I wouldn't be too worried about it. Sam, what do you think of INSEAD and LBS for PE?
I'm not too sure, to be honest, because I didn't really look at international schools much, coming from
Yeah.
an American profile. I would assume they're pretty good, but if you want to get to United States, I think it's going to be tough coming from them.
Yeah, I think the other thing also is I think London Business School may be different, but INSEAD places well in finance and equities, but they are more focused to consulting
Yeah,
because they end up being a more international school, and consulting is a lot more international in nature than any finance track career.
I think. Do you think if this profile wrote PE in their application, would the admissions team say they don't really get how this works? Should this person change that career jump to consulting more? Maybe that would fit more with the school.
That's a good question. I mean, I used to wonder about this, and I sort of realized that it's not the case. I think
Okay.
okay, so most admission people I know, they're not industry people, and most of them come from an education background or something like that. So a lot of them look for logical threads. Like, for example, if you say that you want to work in PE, do you have what it takes to get that job? More than whether this job is available within this business school ecosystem, which I think is both a good and a bad way to look at things, because you still need to be able to have access to the job to get the job. But at the same time, like a lot of the Indian students I know, they go in with this goal that, okay, I want to go to business school and I want to get into consulting with this specific practice like retail or social impact or operations, which business school should know by now is doesn't happen. Consultants are generalists, and that's it. But these people still get admitted year after year, so that sort of tells me that it's okay, I guess.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Okay, quick update. Sam, how's my video looking? My video looking okay, or it's a little
Yep.
blurry?
Nope. All good.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, so that's my thought for this. I'm just a little bit annoyed with how things go in business school sometimes, because this guy seems like the real deal. Like, he has great work experience and a really great background. And I do hope for you that you get the school that you want, but it's just that you may have to struggle, or you may have to strive just a touch harder to get the GMAT score that you need, man. Okay, we're also getting a lot of comments. By the way, thank you for sending the comments. We'll definitely get to them as much as we can, but we have just one more profile before we get to the comments. So Sam, as you can see, this guy is Canadian. He is 27 years old. Again, mostly finance and banking background. His GMAT is 750 for undergrad, a 3.15 at a top 10 school in Canada. But the GPA was an upward curve, so I think that's good. Work experience in a regional bank as an account manager in commercial banking. And then on the side, he also helped his spouse run a business for 3 years. That's cool. Also does pro bono consulting. That's great. So wants to go from from commercial banking to bulge bracket and general investment banking in New York City. He thinks Columbia, Wharton, and Booth are a reach for him, and his target is Stern, Johnson, Fuqua, Tuck, and Darden. I'll let you go first, and then I'll jump in. What do you think so far?
So I like the targets, but I don't think Columbia's a reach. I think that's within his ballpark. I think Booth is within his ballpark too, especially being Canadian. You know, you've got some diversity.
Yeah,
I think Warden's just tough to get into, but I don't think it's a reach, to be honest. I mean, you've got this profile has the work experience, the GMAT, the right age, the experience, the social, the kind of extracurriculars with nonprofits. I think all those are within. I mean, just with going in that Warden will be tougher to get into, but yeah, I think this guy could go for broke with really all schools across the top 12.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. Look, man, I think you're sort of undervaluing yourself. I think this is as good as it gets, and none of your reach schools seems like a reach for me. I think if you play your cards well, write your essays well, I think you can definitely target Wharton and Booth. They can totally happen. I would not really care about Tuck and Darden for your goals, but I mean, you can do them because they are good schools, and some and considerable portion of that go into private equity and go into finance. So that's great. But I would focus more on schools that are closer to New York City because that's what you want to do, right? So I would double down on Stern and Johnson. Those are great schools. I would also maybe look at Ross too, because it's pretty close and that can happen. And maybe also Yale. It's very close to New York City, and even though it's a little bit of a non-traditional business school, it can still get you where you want to go just because of the proximity.
I mean, I think this person should go for Harvard as well, and I think
Yeah,
also Kellogg could be a really interesting option. There are some nice uh, investment banking shops in Chicago,
right.
and Kellogg is an awesome school, and this person has the profile for it. So I would like to see if I had this profile, I would be applying to Harvard and Kellogg for sure.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good call. And I also think that Harvard would like the fact that you have done such a variety of extracurricular stuff. So I think that's only a strength for you. So I'm very comfortable recommending HBS and recommending Wharton for this guy. I mean, I would recommend Stanford too, but it's a little further away from New York City. But otherwise, I'd be very into Stanford. And also, like, a lot of people in Stanford end up getting into the private equity and the hedge fund and the investment banking route. So
Yeah, and you have huge jobs out there in Silicon
mhm.
Valley in the Bay for that stuff. So yeah, I think this person should apply to the M7 across the board and see what he gets into.
Right. Awesome. So this is great. I want to take a few comments. Now, we are both running at a tight schedule today, so thank you so much for sharing the comments. We're going to take a few of those, and then we're going to um, say goodbye. So let's see. Let's take this one first. 4 years of work experience in renewable energy, 1 year of international experience from Abu Dhabi, 75% the okay. So overall, I think if you have a decent profile, I think renewable energy is sort of setting you apart from a typical Indian IT male thing. I would say it's a decent one. The GRE 320 could be improved. I think the GRE 320 puts you like in the middle or slightly lower than the middle. So I would improve on that, but I'm not sure which schools you are trying to apply to. So pick your school and figure out your targets. Okay, Sam, the next one is for you. 25 female, 4 years of work experience as a cybersecurity consultant. GRE 332, which is amazing, by the way. Congrats on killing it. Manage operations over 20 countries, CSR member and volunteer. Any chances at Harvard, Stanford, Wharton?
Yeah, I would go for all of them, and depending on what you're interested in, I would also do some of the other M7s. If you're interested in tech, I think Haas. I think Kellogg would be great for this person. So not sure what they want to go for, but yeah, across the board, go for it.
Yeah, I think Sanjana, I think you have a great shot at the top business schools. Harvard, Stanford, Wharton. It's hard to say because they are just unpredictable. But that's not to say that you can't get in. You can totally get in, but I would apply to them for sure. I would also apply to a bunch of top 10 schools just to make sure that you're hedging your bets really well. But
I'm a,
absolutely, no, totally doable.
I'm assuming that if this person has any inclination to tech because of their background, I mean, I wouldn't sell yourself. I would go for Kellogg and Haas. I think they're awesome schools as well.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. So let's see a few others. Okay, we already took this one. GMAT, you expect to get 740, 760. IIT, 3 years in management consulting, 1.5 years in South Africa and the US, 1 year in e-commerce startup, post MBA goal consulting. Yeah, you sound like some of my classmates. So that sort of means that you have a decent shot. I think all the profile shops are there. So get the GMAT. Don't just expect it. Actually get it. And then the sky's the limit. I think your international experience sort of gives you a bit of an edge compared to the other Indian applicants who will be applying. I think top 10 schools is totally achievable. Sam, what do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think really the question is, Rahul reminds us a lot of the people we know at Ross. And so what can Rahul do if he wants to get into, maybe Wharton, Harvard, Stanford, as opposed to Ross? What can he do to distinguish himself?
Yeah. Awesome. So, like, taking more questions. All right. Okay, it's hard to find so many questions because there are so many of them. Okay, work experience in IT as a full stack developer, mainly worked with banking clients, managing a team of 7, target school, ISB, Kellogg, LBS. Please suggest some other schools. What must be my target score? Well, I mean, if you're applying to these schools, you need to apply with a GMAT score of 740 or above. That's just what it is in terms of a target score. So I think that should put you in a good place. What do you think, Sam?
Yeah, and depending on what your career interests are, I mean, I'm assuming it's going to be to stay in tech. I think some good fallbacks are Foster, UCLA, even Ross,
Yeah.
depending on what score ends up to be. But very good work experience and very unique. Most people don't have any developer skills in MBA.
Yeah. Indian female economics. This college is really good. So congratulations. 4 years in management consultant. Undergrad converts to 4.0. You don't need to convert. I think that's fine. GMAT 700. Looking at LBS and NCAD. Good stuff. Good background. GMAT is a bummer. You need to up your GMAT. I'm sorry. I mean, you have really good stats, and most European schools are more forgiving of the GMAT, but I'd be a little bit anxious, I guess. Talk to consultants. Talk to consultants on the GMAT Club forum. I think that will give you some idea of what to expect. I do think this with this profile, you can get into LBS and NCAD. It can happen. It's unlikely, but it has happened before. So talk to a few people who have made that jump.
Do you see Penelope's question? I think it's at the bottom. Yeah, that looks interesting.
25 female, black, PMM at Google, 730 GMAT, 2.9 GPA, top 20 candidates at Harvard, Stanford, Wharton. I think solid. I think it can happen. PMM at Google is really tough, and you are going to get into a class with peers who want to go to PMM at Google. So the fact that you already have that is a great thing. I mean, I would have to look at, like what's your future goals and aspirations, and Harvard, Stanford, Wharton would ask you those things because their essays, especially Harvard and Stanford, are very emotional. So you have to, like, Stanford has what matters most and why, and Harvard would have, like, what else can you tell us about you? So as long as you tell a really coherent story, I think it can totally happen. Your undergrad GPA is a bummer, but it sort of gets offset with a very good GMAT. But I would still explain it. Maybe you were working, maybe you had issues. So I would explain that. Sam, what do you think?
Yeah, explain it. Also, maybe do some community service stuff to show that, and then get hooked up with the folks at Consortium. And I think you've got a really good profile to go for that.
Right, right. Awesome. So going into more questions, we have about 5 more minutes. Let's see. Sam, feel free to add stuff if you find interesting profiles. I found this one, 6 months in product design. You have 2 patents. Okay, cool. Target ISB and IMB. We don't really take a lot of Indian schools, but looks very good. I think that is in line with IIM, but I'm not sure about ISB though. I think ISB takes higher GMAT. Okay, 730 GMAT, female, 27, 5 years in IT, worked with credit rating agencies and steel companies, chances at Harvard, Stanford, Wharton, LBS, Stanford, Yale. Have worked in Europe for 2 years and UK in 2 years. Well, you have a lot of chops in your profile. I think you have a lot of diversity in your background and experiences, which I think puts you in a good place. Your GMAT's really good too. I think I think you're at a sweet spot. I wouldn't ask you to retake the GMAT. Let me just remove this from the screen so that it's easier. I really wouldn't care about a retake, but I would just say though that. You're looking at schools that are very high on the list, I would try to hedge your bets a little bit. Apply to more schools. I think you'll be better off applying. Sam, what do you think?
Yeah, and especially based on your career, if you want to go stay in tech industry, I think Ross is a great fallback school. I think Tepper would be great. UCLA, Haas, a lot of good schools out there if you want to do tech.
Awesome. So let's see. I'm going to take one more and then we're going to call it a day. Hey, Sam, your future colleague.
There we go. Microsoft.
Microsoft engineer, 10 years in Redmond, GMAT 690, ISB, IMB, and okay, so good work experience. GMAT could be a bit higher. You're also a little bit older than the typical candidate in business school. But for your schools, I think that's fair. I think that's totally fine for the schools that you're choosing to apply to. So I'd be confident. If you can up your GMAT, I think it'll be great. But other than that, pretty good. Okay, so we took a lot of. I'm really sorry if I cannot get to all the profiles. There's 100 people joining, so like it can get a little bit challenging. Thank you so much for joining. Tomorrow we're doing the same thing. Today we got a little bit stuck with some of the profiles, so we were like 30 minutes later than usual. But tomorrow we'll start at 9 a.m. Pacific, so 30 minutes before we started today. Join us tomorrow. Meanwhile, follow us on GMAT Club and share your profiles. It helps us to pick it up. Put it in my thread. That's helpful. That's where I pick most of these from. Also, like the video. That helps us reach out to more people. Subscribe to the video. That helps you know when the new video is up. Otherwise, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you guys so much for joining. We just both finished graduation, so we're going to celebrate today with a lot of carbs. All right. Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Sam.
See you, everybody.